Good morning, everybody. We're going to start in about 15 seconds. Good to see you all on the call. Could I just get somebody to type into the chat box that you can hear me and see my screen? Excellent, excellent responses coming through. Welcome to the webinar. This week's is 27 tips and ideas for coaching your teams for a greater performance in 2021. And this is our debut broadcast on Facebook Live. And the reason we're only debuting that today on Facebook Live is I've just figured out how to do it. So welcome. This is going to last no longer than 1 hour. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Andy Goldberg. My company is Action Coach. We work with owners and directors of growth companies, growth businesses that are really looking to take their business to the next level, and I'm based here in Glasgow. So welcome to the webinar today. Please feel free to type questions into the chat box, and hopefully I'll notice and can respond to your questions. So let's just get on with it. First, please follow me, connect with me on these social media platforms. I've got a lot of videos on YouTube as well. So I put out a lot of free information, and hopefully that will provide value for you in your business and in your life. Connect with me and I'll connect with you back. Follow me on Twitter, I'll follow you back. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's do the whole social media thing. Agenda for today, don't know how much of this we're going to get through because I am promising to finish by noon, but we're definitely going to talk a little bit about the mindset of good leaders. I'm going to show you the game changer and take you through some top tips and rules about delegation, my top 10 tips on leadership, and how to coach underperforming team members. And if we have time, we'll do a couple little bonus tips as well. So that's our agenda for today. There it is, the I in team hidden in the a-hole. That's just for fun, doesn't really add value, but are your team members having fun? Are your employees having fun at work? If they're not having fun, that's on you. So what's fun gets done, guy. No Action Coach webinar would be complete if we didn't start off by introducing this line of choice. That's the blue line you'll see on the screen. Many of you will have seen this screen before, but it never hurts to get a refresher. This line of choice is called that because we choose every minute of every day whether or not we want to play above the line or below the line. And it's our own decision to make. And you can see below this line, there's 3 words. You're all familiar with them. So we blame other people for what goes on in their lives. We blame others for the results we're getting in our business or the results we're not getting in our business. And we make excuses. What are some of your favorite excuses? Well, the most common ones I hear are, I don't have time, we don't have the money right now, that wouldn't work in our industry, we tried it last year, there's a recession on. We like to blame the government, we like to blame our co-workers, our employees, we blame our customers, we blame our competitors. So what aren't we doing while we're blaming all those others and making excuses? Well, what we're not doing is we're not taking action, because what we're basically saying is, when it's somebody else's fault, then that means there's nothing I can do about it. Or when we're making an excuse, all an excuse is a reason not to do something. So what we're basically doing is explaining why we're not going to actually take any action and address the results that we're after in our business. So why do we do it? Well, we do it for a couple of reasons. One is it's human nature. We don't know any different. It's easier to blame others and make excuses. And then there's another reason, which is it might be true. You know, it might be a legitimate excuse. And I hear this all the time from managers and business owners. They'll ask me, how do you handle it when an employee keeps giving you excuses and it's a good excuse? How do you handle the good excuse? Well, that's one of the things we're certainly going to talk about today, because I want you to consider, well, what if it doesn't matter, right? What if it doesn't matter that it's true that there's a recession? It's true that there's a pandemic. Maybe it's true that our competitors are undercutting us on price. Maybe the employee does have a legitimate excuse. Well, what if you just said, it doesn't matter that it's true? What if I take complete ownership of the situation? What if I own this? I'm going to hold myself accountable and take full responsibility for everything that goes on in my business and my life. Well, what would happen is you start to take action. You say, this is on me now, I'm going to do something about it. I didn't cause it, I didn't start it, but it's mine to deal with if I want to get a different result in my business. And this is something that you should be teaching your team. You know, teaching your team members that, well, we need to create a culture in our business that basically says, there may be reasons not to do something. There may be something that was caused by somebody else's fault that's outside of our control. But what we can control is how we respond to the situation. What we can control is the actions that we decide that we're going to take. And what happens is we switch the conversations from why things happened, and we start focusing on how are we going to get results. So instead of asking why, we're asking how. What can we do? How can we address this? And that's harder because now we have to take some action, right? We've got to bring some new energy. We got to bring a new level. We might need to learn something new. We might need to step out of our comfort zone. But what happens is ultimately we get the result. So below this line is what's called a victim mentality. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We see all these problems that are happening to us, and we go, see, told you, there's a recession on. Look what's happened to my business. Whereas when we're above the line, it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy. See, look what's happened. There's a recession, but look what we're doing about it. Look what we're changing up in order to get the results that we want to in our business. And on that note, please remember, especially if you're a business owner or a leader or a director or a manager or a supervisor, that your team really is just a reflection of you. Right? So life is a mirror. Whatever you're seeing is basically you being reflected back to you. And that's a bitter pill for some people to swallow. I know that's pretty hard to take. And some people will even just stay below that line and say, no, no, no. I am, you know, I'm way up here. My team are down here. No, your team are really a reflection of you. And I just want you to consider that it was your recruitment process, your search process that found them. You hired them. You manage them, you keep them, you pay them, you train them. They're yours. They're yours to deal with, and it's your responsibility. Your team's performance, your team's attitude, the communication, the culture, the atmosphere, the environment, it's all on you. So when I'm coaching my clients, when they've got challenges with their team members, I'm not coaching their team members on how to get better. I'm coaching the business owners and the business leaders on how to become better leaders, how to become better managers. So if you want your team to get better, you first must get better. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to start with the game changer. And the game changer literally will change just the complete atmosphere in your organization, in the teams that you lead. And it's 3 simple words. In fact, it's not even 3 words. It's 2.5 words because one of them is not even a word. And this could be the culture statement of your business. This could be the rules of the game in your business. Teach this to your team and live it and breathe it, and it'll totally change the game. And the first word in the game changer is say. And what say means is say what you're going to do. Make a commitment. Okay, so each week, each day, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to achieve. Here's when I'm going to do it. So that's the first step. Simple enough so far. Say what you're going to do. And then do is do what you said you would do. Okay? So say what you're going to do and then do what you said you would do when you said you would do it, the way you said you would do it. Behind me, over my right shoulder, is one of my favorite authors and speakers, Larry Winget, with his 10 rules for business success. Rule number 1 is do what you said you would do, when you said you would do it, the way you said you would do it, of course. And then co is short for communicate. And this is the game changer. Game changer is communicate immediately if you can't do what you said you were going to do. And this is what we talked earlier about, well, how do you handle it when your team members keep bringing you excuses that you can't really argue with? You know, well, okay, well, that's a pretty good excuse why you didn't hit your targets this week, or that's a pretty good excuse as to why you didn't hit your deadline. And it's maddening, isn't it? It's so frustrating because we don't know how to handle those excuses. Well, this does away with that. Because what co means is you're going to pass responsibility back onto the team member to proactively come to you if there's going to be a challenge, if there's some barrier, some obstacle that's going to get in the way. So we're kind of pre-handling the excuse. So an excuse is, here's why I didn't do something. The pro is, team member comes to you and says, look, I know I said I was going to get this thing done by 2 o'clock on Friday, but something has come up now. How do we deal with this? So now you still have a problem, but you can proactively deal with it. And the responsibility is on the other person to be proactive about it. So you're taking excuses after the fact and then turning them into handling problems as they come up. So this is Say Do Co. And it's the game changer. Say what you're going to do what you said you would do, and communicate immediately if you're not going to be able to do what you said you would do. It does away with the excuses after the fact. You still need to pre-handle them, but I would rather people came to me in advance to tell me something is up, rather than me going to them and say, well, did you do it? And they go, no, I didn't. So there you go. That's the game changer. 3 simple words. We could stop the webinar right here, but there's more. One of the things I promised we would talk about today is delegation. This webinar is 27 tips and strategies for coaching and leadership and delegation. I'm pretty sure there's 27. I think I went through them. I counted 27 tips. There might be 26, there might be 28. I don't know. Write me a strongly worded letter at the end. But I wanted to go through, spend quite a bit of time on delegation, because it's going to be really, really important, especially if you want to grow your business, that you become better at delegating. So before we get into the strategies, the first thing you need to know is the first rule of delegation. Now, you may want to write this one down. Okay, this is the #1 rule of delegation. Really, really important that we get this. You're going to be disappointed. That's rule #1. You will be disappointed. And what that means is nobody's going to do it as well as you wanted them to. Nobody's going to do it as good as you, basically, all right? Or nobody's going to do it the same exact way that you would have done it. And the first rule of delegation says we need to be okay with that, right? You'll become much better managers, leaders, and delegators if you become okay with the inevitable fact that they're not going to do it exactly the same way that you would have done it. And once we can be okay with that, we can start delegating left and right, energizing our team, and getting a lot more done. So keep this rule in mind, write it down. Maybe you even need to, print it out and post it next to your desk. Hopefully not where team members can see it, because obviously then they'll realize that you're okay with being disappointed. We don't want to be disappointed. We just need to be okay with our teams doing it slightly different than we would do it. Well, why is it important to delegate? Well, the first reason it's important to be delegating is just give you more time, right? Life is short. This is not a dress rehearsal. We spend a lot of time at work, so we want to make sure that we have as much personal time as possible, particularly business owners who want to be spending less time at the office. Delegating more obviously gives you more personal time because you got more people doing more work. Also gives you the opportunity to get more done. So if it's not about finding more personal time, you want to delegate as much as you can so that you can focus on higher value, higher priority activities, such as growing the business, making more money. Which leads us to point 3, which is you want to be able to grow more effectively. So the more work you're giving your team, the more responsibility you're giving your team, the more you can achieve as a whole, as a team in your business. You can't do everything yourself. And as soon as we're okay with being disappointed some of the time, we can grow much more effectively, because then we got more people focused on more things. Sorry if I'm stating the obvious, by the way. I recognize that none of this is rocket science, but we really need to get our head around the importance of being good delegators. Point 4 is to allow for the growth and development of your team members. So the more you delegate to your team, the better they get, the more they learn, right? The more responsibility they bring on, they'll up their game. And that's one of the things we need to be doing as leaders. #1 role of a business leader is to create more leaders. That's a good one to write down. The #1 role of the business leader is to create more leaders. You can't create more leaders by getting them to just do the same old that they're comfortable with, that they're going to get done right. You need to give them more responsibility so that they grow and develop and keep stepping out of their comfort zone. By the way, team members appreciate it when you give them more work. Okay, when you give them more responsibility, not more busy work, not lower value work, but when you keep giving them better work, harder work, more challenging work, they appreciate it because it shows that you trust them and they feel better having more responsibility. They may moan about it when you give them more work. Okay, they may say, "Oh man, I'm stretched as it is," or "Oh man, I'm not really good at that kind of thing." But really, you're showing them that you trust them. And another reason to delegate is it teaches your team members to take that responsibility so that they become more valuable to you, because the more responsibility they can take on, the more value they bring. And you want everybody on your team ultimately to be a profit center in your business as opposed to a cost center. So everybody on your team should be making the business more money than they cost. So the more you delegate to them, the more valuable and more profitable they become to the business. So what should we be delegating to them? I do a time management workshop where we go into a lot more detail around what are some of the tasks, what are some of the functions that you're currently performing that you can delegate to your team. We're not going to go through that in detail today, but here's a little kind of a checklist that you can use, or some controls you can use to determine what is acceptable to delegate. And the first question you need to ask is, well, you've got this function, you've got this task, you've got this responsibility, you want to delegate it. Ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? If I delegate this and they get it wrong, what's the worst thing that can happen? And can I live with that? And if the answer is yes, I can live with the worst thing that can happen, then delegate it, right? Go ahead and delegate it. If I can't live with the worst thing that can happen, then don't delegate it. I find this is a really easy, quick way for me to decide what I should be willing to give up. Okay, can you live with the worst thing that can happen? Second question is, what's the cost of not delegating it, right? So if I'm going to continue to perform this function myself, what does that cost the business? Well, what it costs the business is the time that I'm spending on that function could be allocated to something that's worth more to the business. So how can I replace this activity with something even more profitable for the business, so that I'm getting my hourly rate up, my production rate goes up in monetary terms because I'm performing a function that's more valuable. Somebody else is now performing this function. So make sure you understand what's the cost financially of not delegating this task. Now, how do we delegate? Top tips on how to delegate effectively. Okay, so I hope you're taking notes here, because I'm not sending you my slides. Maybe I should have said that at the start. All right, so step number one, make sure you've got systems in place that somebody can refer to so they can see how it's done. We've got a rule in Action Coach, and the rule is if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. If you can't show it to me, it doesn't exist. It's not a process, right? So processes and systems and policies need to be documented as specifically as possible. Again, I do another workshop just on systems, but we need to document what are the steps, what's the recipe, what's the instruction manual for how to perform any given task that you're looking to delegate. And then give them the skills and the training in order to perform that task. Research shows, studies show time and time again that the most profitable companies also spend the most time training their teams. Their team, they count the number of hours per year that their average employee spends doing training, and it's directly correlated to profitability of the business. So don't worry about taking a person off a job to send them on some training. It's going to add to the bottom line in the end. But make sure you're training them specifically on the functions that you're delegating. Give them the responsibility to take that action and get those results. Hold them responsible. The results are on you now, Mr. Team Member or Miss Team Member. It's on you to get the results. It's on you to figure out how you're going to get this done in the timeline, get it done correctly. Give them the responsibility to do it, and also give them the authority to do it. You have permission, team member. You have permission to do what you need to do to get this job done, obviously within boundaries. But let people make their own decisions, let people make their own mistakes, find their way. You will be disappointed, certainly in the early days when you're delegating a new task to a new team member with their new skills. There's going to be mistakes made along the way, but that's how we learn and that's how we get better. If nobody was making any mistakes in the company, then nobody's learning, nobody's growing, you're not stepping out of your comfort zone. Give them a time frame, right? There's got to be a sense of urgency in everything that we do. Goals need to be aligned to the bigger goals of the company, and there's got to be a sense of urgency there to keep that energy level high. You can't say to a team member, please get this done eventually. You've got to say to team members, please get this done by X date, X time, so that they can plan and prioritize. Give a really clear picture of the result, okay? So it's not just the how to perform the function. Give a clear picture on what's the outcome, what's the result that you want to see at the end of it. So that, you know, employees, team members may find a better way to do it than you knew, right? Than the system that you've documented. Your team members may find a better way to do it. So make sure they understand the outcome that you're after. People might figure out a better way. And give them feedback, right? So always giving feedback so that people know whether they're heading down the right path. People need to know whether they're producing what you want them to produce. I hate surprises in business. I hate surprises in management. I want everybody to know all of the time whether they're on the right track to achieving their goals, meeting their responsibilities, so forth and so on. So make sure you're giving regular feedback. Having said that, there's a couple different levels of feedback, okay? So we want to make sure that we're delegating, not abdicating. So what's the difference between delegation and abdication? Abdication is you're just giving something up. Somebody else is going to do this from now on. I don't want to know about it. And you hope that they get it done right. Delegation is you're getting somebody else to do it, but you're not giving up control. So this is how we get over that rule number one of delegation, where you will be disappointed, is we're not giving up control. But we're not micromanaging either. So there's two different levels of control. There's actually more. If you read The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey by Ken Blanchard, I'll pull that book up on the slide at the end. But if you read that book, they'll show you, I think, 4 different levels of control, depending on the importance of the task and the skill level required and how new it is to the team member and so forth. So level 1 is, I want you to show me what you're doing before the deadline, before we go live, before it's launched, before whatever. Show me what you're doing so that I can approve it, so that I can check it, and I can, you know, guide you in the right direction or help you fix things that go wrong. So that's a higher level of control. Well, level 2 is just bring me the results. Just you're on your own. I trust you to do it. You have the skills, you have the resources. Get it done. Come to me when it's done. Show me the results. Show me the outcomes. I don't care how you do it. So those are the 2 basic levels, depending on how much you're willing, how much risk you're willing to take, how much you're willing to give, how much responsibility you're willing to give to your team members. A few more top tips on delegation. Top tip number 1 is go fast, right? Communicate fast, make decisions fast, take action fast. The faster we go, the higher the energy level, the more we're going to achieve. Use WhatsApp. Now, I'm not a huge WhatsApp fan for some reasons. One is it can be a terrible distraction, but WhatsApp is a great tool for delegating to teams. So you have one WhatsApp group that all your team are members of, and they've got to keep their notifications on. And we do what's called set and forget. Set it and forget it, okay? So you delegate a task into the WhatsApp group, and then you don't need to worry about it anymore. It's there, it's written down, nobody can delete it. You can see who's read it. You can see when they've read it, I think, and then you don't need to worry about it. It's on your team now to take action. Make sure that you're thanking and congratulating your team on a regular basis. Okay, so I think it's the rule is something like 3 to 1, 3 positive comments to every 1 criticism or every 1 negative comment. We need to make sure that we're balancing out the negatives with plenty of positive. So make sure you're catching people doing things right. A great book for this is Whale Done. Whale Done by, I think it's Ken Blanchard or Spencer Johnson, one of those guys. A really easy read, like 90-minute read, where they teach you how to catch people doing things right, giving them encouragement, support, thanks, and congratulations. And set goals, right? Set targets, set goals with deadlines, goals that are measurable, goals that are achievable and specific, you know, set SMART goals so that we're not just working and doing, we're working towards something, we're working towards an outcome. One of the things I get asked for help a lot on is how to deal with team members or employees that are underperforming, that are not hitting their targets, that are not doing the tasks the way they should be doing it. They're just not meeting that level of performance. They're not meeting their responsibilities. And that's a whole, that's a whole world of leadership skills and management skills I need to learn and get better at how to coach underperforming employees. But I'm going to give you a really simple tool. That's just 4 questions that we need to ask when we're addressing how to deal with an underperforming person. We need to ask 4 questions. Question number 1 is there a system? In other words, we just talked about this a minute ago. Do you have a clearly documented set of procedures and steps and policies that the team member is meant to be following? 80% of a business should be system-based, 20% person-based. Okay, so 80% of a business should be fairly consistent, routine work that is documented so that people are doing it consistently. And then 20% is going to need to be human intervention, human decision-making. So first question we need to ask is, well, is there a system in place? And if the answer is yes, there is a system in place, then we go to question number 2. And question number 2 is it the right system? In other words, if the system in question number 1, if the team member was following that system correctly, we would be getting the results that we were after. So if the answer to that is yes, that if the team member was following the system, we would be getting the results, then we move to question 3. And question 3 is, did we teach them the system, right? So did we give the employee the necessary skills, resources, understanding, support, help, whatever, to follow the system correctly and get the job done right? And if the answer to that question is yes, then we go to question 4. Question 4 is, are they willing to follow the system? Okay, there is a system. It is the right system. We have taught them to follow the system and how to follow the system. Question 4 is, are they willing to follow it? So if you look at these 4 questions, questions 1, 2, 3 are whose responsibility? Yours, the managers, the leaders, the business owners. This is your responsibility to make sure you have the correct system and that they've been trained on it. Question 4 is their responsibility, the team member's responsibility to follow that system. That's their job. Okay, so if you've got yeses on 1, 2, and 3, then question 4 is a simple conversation to have with the team member. You sit down with them and you say, look, help me understand what's going on here. It's, that's a great book, by the way, The Road Less Stupid. Sorry, I keep throwing book titles at you, but leaders are readers. Okay, so these are some of the best books you can read on leadership. The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. There's a chapter called Help Me Understand, which is basically you sit down with a team member and you have what's known as the confrontation, where you confront their underperformance. And you say, look, we have a system, you've been taught it. It is the right system. So if you did through the system, you'd be getting the result. So help me understand why you're not willing to follow the system, because that's your job. It's the employee's jobs to follow the systems of the business. My top 10 tips on leadership. Again, most of these are going to be obvious, but rank yourself out of 10. How are you doing on each of these areas? Number 1, leaders talk about the future. Okay, so the clue is in the word lead. Because you're leading, that means you're going somewhere. You're taking your team with you. Okay, so the owner of a business, the leader of a business, we're growing, we're moving towards something bigger. We've got a mission that's bigger than any one individual on the team. We always need to be thinking about the future, talking about the future, and excited about the future. Number 2, teach people things, okay? So show your team members that you know what you're talking about. Teach them something new. They'll appreciate it, right? It's exciting. Make sure that you're always teaching somebody something, okay? Leaders create new leaders, okay? Great leaders are always creating new leaders. Number 3, seek out new ideas. Always be innovating. Always be open to new ideas. Listen to feedback from your team. You don't have to say yes to everything, but have brainstorming sessions, do your research, do your homework, look at what your competition are doing, okay? By the way, the more you delegate daily tasks and functions to your team, the more you can think about some of this other stuff, bigger picture stuff, right? Always be looking for new ideas. Keep telling people they did a good job. Again, the book Well Done will teach you how to do that. And you may think you're already doing that, but what I would do is I would analyze this for 2 weeks, right? So count how many times you actually congratulate somebody or thank somebody for doing a good job. Count how many times you do it. You should be doing it at least twice per day. That's actually a pretty big ask. So you may need to go and learn how to do it. When you need to get mad, then get over it. Okay. So business is an emotional journey. There's going to be ups and downs, highs and lows, moments of stress. It's okay. It's okay to show your team that you're human, as long as you're not making it personal. And then show your team how quickly you get over it and start moving forward again. Okay, so we got mad. Now it's time to put actions in place. That's behind us. We've learned our lesson, and now let's move forward. Sometimes it's okay to get mad intentionally, right? So just to, you want to get people to kind of stop in their tracks and go, oh, well, he's really serious. I thought he was just kidding before about, being annoyed that we weren't hitting our targets. But now I realize he's serious. So sometimes it's a good idea, to show a little bit of a flare up now and again. Number 6, meet new people in your organization. If you're a small business, you probably know everybody in the business. It's not a big deal. But as your business grows, make it a point to get to know people, right? Get to know your team's, families' names, their kids' names, their hobbies. Get to know people on a personal level. They'll follow you to the ends of the earth. I'm telling you, if you get to know them at a personal level. So make sure you're always meeting new people in your business. Say yes more than you say no, okay? Now, yes is usually going to be the right answer, even if it's the wrong answer. What do I mean by that? Well, if you say no, you're not going to try this new idea, for example, you're never going to know whether that was the right decision. You're never going to know, okay? But if you say yes and you get it wrong and the answer should have been no, you'll have learned, right? You'll have learned something new, or it'll have been the right thing to do. Generally speaking, one would be saying yes to trying new things, provided that they're not throwing us off track and off focus of our bigger goals. You can't say yes to everything, but say yes a lot of the time, okay? Actively listen. Make sure you're asking great questions and listening in team meetings. Stop thinking about how you're going to overrule an employee or explain to them why they're wrong. Just listen to people with a real genuine intent to understand. If you email me after this webinar, I'll send you a short ebook, I think just a few pages, by Jeffrey Gitomer, the great sales author, on listening skills. So some top tips on great listening skills. If you struggle to listen, just email me, no charge, just happy to send you this PDF. My email address, by the way, is andrewgoldberg@actioncoach.com. Also, you can just drop a comment in the Facebook and I'll see it there. Be enthusiastic, right? All the time. Be enthusiastic even when you don't feel enthusiastic. Be enthusiastic even when you're tired, even when you're grumpy, even when you're hungover. You've got to bring that level of passion and level of energy. Write this down. The business owner sets the ceiling of energy in the business. The business owner sets the ceiling of energy in the business. Or the manager sets the ceiling of energy on the team. Okay, so what that means is if you're the boss and your energy level is here, hopefully you can see me on the screen, your energy level is here, your team members are going to be somewhere here. They're going to be below you. So if you want them to raise their energy levels and enthusiasm, you need to raise your energy level of enthusiasm. They'll still be below you. But if you want them to raise theirs, you need to raise theirs first. Have fun. We talked about fun earlier. Make sure you're having fun. What's fun gets done, okay? Or as I sometimes like to say, I put the FU in fun. Make sure your team are having fun, okay? So that we spend a lot of time at work. We want to make sure we're having a bit of fun, okay? And also, if your team are having fun, your customers are more likely to be having fun. So, how many relationships are there in your business? Do you know how many relationships there are in your team? Okay, so by relationships, I mean each unique individual relationship between employees and between you as well. So here's how you calculate it out. If X is the number of employees in your business, the number of relationships is X squared minus X divided by 2. All right, so write that down. X squared minus X divided by 2. So if you have 10 employees in your company, the number of relationships in your company is 10 squared is 100, minus 10 is 90, divided by 2 is 45. If you have 10 employees in your company, you have 45 relationships, 45 unique relationships. And that can get quite messy. That's 45 opportunities for there to be misunderstandings, miscommunications, hurt feelings, or people just not liking each other and not getting along. Okay, so if you have more than 10, that just goes up exponentially. So get your calculator out if you've got more than 10 and start to do the math. If you have 5 employees, that's 5 times 5 is 25, minus 5 is 20, divided by 2 is 10. So 5 employees is 10 relationships. So why is that important? How are we communicating? How are we treating our fellow employees and our team members at work? Well, look, there's 4 ways that we can treat other people, depending on the level of respect that we show them and also our own self-respect. Okay, so respect meaning taking into account a person's perspective, their opinion, their needs, their wants, their desires, their viewpoint. Okay, so that's what we mean by respect. So based on the level of respect we show other people and based on our own self-respect, we can fall into one of 4 quadrants. And the first is a low respect for other people and a low self-respect, meaning I'm miserable. I'm going to make sure the rest of the world is miserable along with me. Okay, so hopefully you don't have too many people in this in your organization, but you've probably met people like that. Okay, and these are the people that are after the lose-lose situation, right? I'm not going to show anybody else any respect, and I'm a miserable git myself. We get no respect. They just want to bring the business down from the inside out. The second quadrant is when we have a high self-respect, but a low respect for others. This is the top left quadrant. And what this means is I'm out for my own agenda, right? I'm on my own agenda. So otherwise known as office politics. I'm going to step on other people's toes to get what I want. Okay, so I'm not going to take into account your viewpoints, your needs, wants, and desires. I'm not going to listen to you. It's my way or the highway. This is how we're going to do it, even if I've got to, you know, just completely take everybody off agenda. And it's a win-lose. I'm going to win at the expense of everybody else. So obviously this is not a good place to be either, right? We don't want to win-lose. The third quadrant is the bottom right, and this is one that's probably a lot more common than people realize. And it's when you have a high respect for other people, but a low self-respect. And what that means is I'm going to do whatever you want. I'm going to go along with whatever you say. I'm going to make sure that you have everything that you need and want and desire, even at my own expense. And we call that passive, right? So if aggressive is when we have a no respect for the other people, passive is when we have a high respect for other people, but a low self-respect. And it means we're going to give in. And team members who fall into this quadrant are very rarely giving their best performance, because even though they want to please others, they're not really happy, right? They're not having fun. They're not feeling fulfilled. They're giving up their personal time. They're feeling stressed, but they just want to make sure that you have what you want. So it's also a win-lose situation. You may win. You may think you're getting what you want to be getting from an employee, but they're not getting what they want from you. They're not getting what they want from their job, from their career. They're unfulfilled. Which leaves quadrant number 4, which is the top right, which you can figure out by process of elimination, is when we have a high respect for other people and a high self-respect. And this is the box that we call being assertive. And I find people don't really understand what assertive means. They misuse the word. They confuse assertive with aggressive. And aggressive means you're going to listen to me and that's all there is to it. Assertive means I'm going to listen to you with a genuine intent to understand where you're coming from, but then I'm also going to tell you where I'm coming from and you're going to listen, and then we'll make a decision. Okay, not a compromise. You can still be the boss and still make the final decision, but I'm going to listen to you first of all and hear where you're coming from and show you respect. And you're going to do the same for me. And that's what's called having an assertive conversation. Everybody gets their voice. Everybody gets listened to before a decision is made. And that's a win-win situation. We're out here to find a win-win. A compromise is not a win-win. A compromise is both parties leave, neither of whom got what they wanted. Okay? Assertive means we're going to share our ideas, then we're going to make a decision that's best for the business, best for everybody. It's hard to remember these: hostile, aggressive, assertive, passive. So we've changed it to words that are easier to understand. And we call it I'm okay, you're okay. We always want to be coming at relationships, coming at confrontations, coming at difficult situations from a perspective of I'm okay, you're okay. Hey, listen, you're okay. I don't agree with you, but you're okay, right? You don't agree with me, but I'm okay too. Okay, so let's have a culture of I'm okay, you're okay in an organization. There's a great book as well called Assertiveness at Work by Ken and Kate Back on how to have assertive conversations. Probably one of the best books, if not the best book I've ever read on how to manage people. Wish I read that book when I was 21 years old, when I first started out as a manager. A young guy in a suit trying to manage employees that have been working there 20, 30 years, and they've just seen suits come and go, and they just ran all over me, right? Because I just fell straight into passive mode. And then when I got really frustrated, I fell straight into aggressive mode. So I was either, I'm not okay, you're okay, and then completely flipped to, I'm okay, you're not okay, because you're not doing what I want you to do. And this book will teach you how to have those conversations where, like, look, you're okay, I'm also okay, now we need to deal with this. All right, finally, I think I promised I was just going to take you through the 6 keys to a winning team. This is a whole other 2-hour workshop that I do. Just get in touch with me. You're going to find out when the next one is. But generally speaking, so sorry, it's a Monday morning. I find it hard to talk on a Monday morning. Generally speaking, any challenges you have with your team or any opportunities to get the greatest performance out of your team are going to fall under one of these 6 items. Now, item number 1 is what's called strong leadership. Okay, it starts with you. Your team is a reflection of its leaders. Okay, so if you want your team to grow, you first must grow as a leader. Leaders are readers. Leaders set the ceiling of energy in a business. So if you want your team to bring more energy and more enthusiasm and passion, you need to bring more energy, enthusiasm, and passion. If you want your team reading books and going on training and growing, you first must be reading books and going on training and growing. And if you want your team to stop making excuses, you need to stop making excuses. You see where I'm going with this. So life is a mirror. Go back to that slide. This is life is a mirror. Your team is a reflection of you. Key number 2 is common goals. Your team are working together towards a common goal. And that's my definition of a team. A team is a group of people working towards a common goal that's bigger than themselves. If you don't have common goals, then you don't have a team. You've just got a bunch of people that happen to work at the same place. So we need to put something together, a mission, a vision, goals that everybody's working together to achieve more. And 3, we've got to have rules of the game. We've got to set standards that are documented, that are clear, that everybody agrees to. Okay, how we communicate with each other, how we treat each other, the standards in our organization. Action Coach has 14 points of culture in our organization that we all buy into. In order to join Action Coach's community, we have to agree to these 14 principles, and we make them public. So you can just find them on my website. If you just go on my website, I'll share Action Coach's 14 points of culture, and you can see what we mean. But we got rules of the game that we abide by. Okay, so I'll share with you an example. Under one of our points of culture around communication, we have a rule that states we do not gossip, which means we don't talk about people who aren't there. And so whenever one Action Coach meets another Action Coach, like at a conference, and a coach starts talking about somebody else, we can hold them accountable and say, no, we don't do that here, right? We hold ourselves to a higher standard. You can have rules of the game in your business, and then you can incorporate those rules into your recruitment process so that any new people you bring into the business also agree to those rules before they even join. So you can't have them join and then say, oh, well, you didn't tell me we were allowed to do that. It's like, yeah, I did, before you even agreed to join the company. Action plan, who does what by when? Okay, so we need to have a clear, diarized 90-day action plan. Each person knows what they're doing each week for the next 12 weeks so that we're always staying focused and moving towards our goals. Number 5 is support risk-taking. And what that means is giving your team permission to make mistakes, giving your team permission to try new things, to step out of our comfort zone, to innovate, okay? If we're not taking risks, we're not getting better. We always need to be trying new things and getting better, and that means taking some risks and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. You want to manage risk, you want to manage mistakes, obviously. But if nobody's making any mistakes, nobody's doing anything. Nobody's challenged, right? We're not actually getting anywhere. We're just getting through to the end of the day. And number 6 is 100% involvement and inclusion. And what that means is everybody in the business feels involved, feels like they know what's going on in the company, and they understand the importance of their contribution. One more book I'm going to throw at you. There's a book called The Great Game of Business. It's been around for a long time. It's been through a number of revisions. But The Great Game of Business teaches you how to teach all of your team a financial understanding of the business, so that every member of your business can read your balance sheet, your P&L, and understand it and explain it. But it goes deeper than that. Each person understands what impact they have on the business financially. It doesn't matter whether you clean in the floors or whether you're the head of sales. Everybody understands what their contribution is. What happens when they let the team down? What happens when they achieve their targets? So that means we need to have good, clear communication. That communication needs to be consistent, regular team appraisals, performance reviews, but most of all, just positive and consistent communication with everybody across the board. All right, so question coming through. What was the title of the book you mentioned around the win-lose quadrants, the one you wish you read when you were a young manager? I don't think the book was around when I was a young manager, but it's called Assertiveness at Work by Ken and Kate Back. And I'm going to pull it up on the screen in a minute. Thanks for asking that question. So yeah, here's a great quote from Homer Simpson. People who don't like their jobs don't go on strike. They just show up every day and do it really half-assed. Man, that's true, and it's painful. Okay, when people stay and they're underperforming, it's so costly to the business. In fact, studies show that having the wrong person in a job costs the company 15 times that person's salary. And that may sound far-fetched, but if you think about it, man, first of all, there's the opportunity cost. All the time spent on that employee when we could be spending that time doing other things. But also that person's underperformance, that person's attitude spreads like poison throughout an organization. So we really need to recognize when people aren't happy in their work and they're not taking care of business, what are we going to do about it? And lastly, a quote from my good friend and fellow coach and action coach, Peter Polka. I was going to sack them last week, but I need them to do a bad job just for a while longer. And I always laugh when I read this quote, but it's not that funny, right? How long are you going to keep somebody on who's not doing the job, who's not bringing the results? They need to be liberated back into the workplace, as Keith Cunningham says. And look, if you're not happy with them, the chances are they're not happy either. People tend to be relieved when you let them go for poor performance. If they're not performing well, it means they're not happy. Okay? But there should never be surprises. People should know they're not performing well because you're communicating, you're trying to develop them, you're trying to support them, they're getting their performance reviews. Should never be a surprise when somebody needs to be liberated back into the workforce. But I just get a little bit of a laugh, a painful laugh with that quote. So here are the books I mentioned. The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey, probably the best book I've ever read on how to teach employees to solve their own problems, okay? And pass problems back to them so they're not bringing their problems to you all the time. And any book in the 1 Minute Manager series is going to be a good read, and they're short reads, okay? But easy to implement ideas. Well done. So this is how we learn to thank and congratulate our team members for doing a job well done as often as possible. Assertiveness at Work is the book I mentioned on I'm Okay, You're Okay. That's not the shortest book in the world, but it's worth every page. It's worth every page to get through that book. I've read it twice. Who is a great book on recruitment, and also Action Coach's book, Brad Sugar's book, Instant Team Building. If you combine Who and Instant Team Building, you'll develop an amazing recruitment process. So that if you're a business owner, you need to be an expert on recruitment, because one of the key roles of a business leader is to find and develop great people for their organization. So those are my recommended reads based on the webinar. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to put my contact details up on the screen again, but while I'm doing that, can you type your top takeaway into the chat box, please? Okay, so your top takeaway is the #1 thing you've learned from today, #1 action that you're going to take as a result of what you learned from today. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, go ahead and type it into the comments box. If anybody's watching it on Facebook Live, I don't know, I haven't promoted it on Facebook, but you got to start somewhere, right? Support risk taking. So please type your takeaways into the chat box. I'll read them out anonymously. And while you're doing that, just a reminder of my contact details. Feel free to email me at andrewgoldberg@actioncoach.com and ask me anything, and I'll send you what I've got. Also, feel free to watch any of my videos on my YouTube channel. If you get value from the videos on my YouTube channel, please like, comment, share, do all that kind of good stuff, please. And yeah, and I'll do it right back at you. Lastly, if you want to book a one-on-one with me, there's no charge, no obligation. Happy to give you a 60-minute coaching session in your business. Just go on calendly.com/Andrew Goldberg Action Coach. Book in a time with me right now. I allocate 5 hours a week doing complimentary coaching sessions. There's no charge, no obligation, just help for people who ask for it, right? So that's the link there. Just go on my website as well, Andrew Goldberg, or sorry, what's my website? actioncoach.com/Andrew Goldberg, and you can find my Calendly link there. Some top takeaways. Systems. Yeah, definitely above the line, below the line. Very useful. Glad you enjoyed that one. You'll see me teach that one in most sessions that I do. Superb session. Thank you, sir. Business owner manager sets the ceiling of energy in the business. Yeah, that's right. I learned that as a coach. When my coach taught me that the coach sets the ceiling of energy with their clients. Whoever's reporting to you, you're setting the ceiling of energy there, right? Top takeaway: accepting inevitable disappointment with delegating. Asking what's the worst case scenario of delegating. Would I be okay with that? Yeah, classic. Good. Above and below the line, really useful when speaking to team members. Yep. I could do a whole workshop just on above and below the line. I could write those words up on a flip chart, spend all day teaching it, but we don't have time. The Peter Booker quote: I was going to sack him last week, but I need him to do a bad job. Yep, like that's an old chestnut. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. Yep, love the part about coaching underperformers and the 4-question process. Yep, probably a few more coming through now, but 11:52. Thanks very much again for joining me today. There will be more webinars coming out in the future. Just keep an eye open. Feel free to visit my website or my Calendly link if you want to do a one-on-one with me. And this session has been recorded, so I will be popping that up somewhere. So keep an eye out for that if you want to watch it again or share it with people. Thanks very much, everybody. See you again soon.